Right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Power Apps presentation. We've leaned very much into the theme of superheroes and comics on this one, so I hope you enjoy it. My name is Mark Armstrong. I'm Director of Modern Workplace at inTEC. So it's my role to kind of work with organizations and kind of understand what they do and how they do it and provide kind of technology-focused solutions to help them do things better, automate processes, digitize processes, and whatnot. And the Power Platform is a kind of key benefit in this area because there's so much that it can do around exactly those things, digitizing processes and automating them. So this week on the Power Platform, we're going to look at what it is as a whole, and then we're going to focus on three key aspects of the platform: Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power BI. And I'll do a little bit of a demo of each of these tools that you can kind of follow along with Power Automate. I'll show you how to make a few automations that you can do either on this call or afterwards. So if we look at the Power Platform itself, there are multiple components to the Power Platform. So we've got Power Pages, which is kind of basically kind of Microsoft powered websites that you can use to have customer interaction, and Power Virtual Agents, which are kind of chatbots. And then we've got kind of the three key aspects that we're going to focus on today: Power Automate, which is all around workflow automation; Power Apps, which is around app development; and Power BI, which is our kind of business analytics tool. So, if you've got a tough problem and you need to derive insights from large data sets, Power BI helps you do that through data-driven insights. Power Apps can improve efficiency by integrating commonly used software into a single application and streamlining processes and avoiding data duplication. And Power Automate enhances productivity by automating tasks, saving time, and reducing manual effort. So here's some kind of key stats for us to look at. Companies implementing Power Platform in one way or another get 140% ROI over 3 years. There's a 45% reduction in application development cost. So that's either internal development, or if you're working with a company like inTEC to build these apps, they're much cheaper doing within the Power Platform than they are as kind of custom development. And 50%, that's an amazing stat, I think, 50% of digital work activities can be automated right now with current technology. So it's absolutely something that people need to be aware of and working on. So to leverage kind of the Power Platform in your business, there's kind of three areas that, as I say, we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on boosting efficiency through building custom apps. We're going to focus on increasing productivity by automating cumbersome workflows. And we're going to work on enhancing understanding by visualizing and analyzing your own data. So let's start with Power Automate, and let's have a look at what that means. So Power Automate allows us to automate digital processes and robotic processes as well. So what that basically means is that you can create automations that will basically work on triggers, so that when this happens, do this. But you can also create robotic processes where you can show it what you want to do by recording mouse clicks, and then set it off so that in the future it will do that thing for you. And what that means is that Power Automate can essentially kind of connect with anything you want it to. There are over 1,000 connectors now into the Power Platform as a whole, because obviously it's Microsoft led, and therefore a lot of companies kind of want to get in on it, because more companies than not use Microsoft as their kind of their key platform. So before we jump in and kind of look at Power Automate, it's important to kind of set the stage as to why automation matters. We know that businesses face pressure from every angle to become more productive and efficient, but we know that time and resources are finite, and that there's only simply so much one person can do in a day. So the best organizations are powered by strategic vision, and those pressures can often mean that those kind of smart, creative people actually spend a good amount of their days performing the drudgery, answering emails, sifting through documents. Ultimately, humans excel at creative and strategic thinking, but we spend a lot of our time performing repetitive and manual tasks. And this is where Power Automate can help. one of the key ones is there are more remote workers than ever, and that can create lower visibility and mean that you're managing lots more systems. So trying to streamline a workforce can be challenging when employees are constrained and they need their time back. And along with this, nothing is slowed down. The demands of urgency are just as high as ever. So when we look at automation, there are real opportunities to optimize with a digital workforce, completing mundane tasks faster with proven value and ultimately freeing up time for more strategic and innovative work. And what could you do? Well, the vision for Power Platform started with kind of this recognition that data is increasingly flowing across everything, and a belief that organizations need to kind of harness that data to gain insights and to drive intelligent work processes. So with more workplace innovation, as you can see, 60% of occupations have at least 30% technically automatable activities. 50% of work activities globally have the potential to be automated, as we discussed earlier. And 64% of collecting and processing data are among the activities with the highest automation potential. So there's lots of opportunity out there, whatever business you are, and whatever data you kind of work with, to put these sort of automation practices in place to help you. And it's not me that you have to believe on this. There are studies that kind of demonstrate this. That again, with Power Automate in particular, demonstrate 199% ROI over 3 years, and just under 28% reduction in errors due to increased automation. This presentation has hyperlinks in it, and you can click on these. So if you want, you can click on this and save it for later. But there's the Forrester study that was done that demonstrates the fact that Power Automate can drive business transformation and get you these pretty impressive results. So to Power Automate itself, Power Automate is built with kind of several attributes that enable anyone to begin automating tasks in a matter of minutes. And I'm going to kind of demonstrate this for you in just a sec. And Power Automate is essentially built on triggers, actions, and conditional logic. It was designed for ease of use. So as much as possible, Microsoft have kind of made it plug and play. There's, like anything technology-wise, there's a limit to that before you kind of need technical expertise to help you. But there's a lot of stuff that kind of any user across a business can kind of automate using Power Automate. And there's lots of capabilities that it's got. It's got the ability to share documents. It can seamlessly integrate across Microsoft's cloud ecosystem, but it can also connect to hundreds of third-party applications. It can be connected to on-premise solutions as well. So kind of anything that you've got within your organization, you can kind of ultimately connect Power Automate to and get that automating your process as a result. With the kind of common scenarios that we see as a business, there's a lot. So it can be used to automate a variety of scenarios. Some of the key ones are around things like approval processes, so approving holiday requests, purchase orders, things like that. Really straightforward to do. The processing of data, so automating data entry and processing tasks. So again, it sees something that produces a trigger, it fills in a form for you, and then that pushes it off to the next place. Task management, so it can automate things like assigning and tracking tasks and sending notifications to users when those tasks have been assigned to them and completed, and automate report generating. So things like generating reports on sales data or website analytics. Again, Power Automate can be used to automate those things. So let's have a quick look at kind of the stuff that we can do in Power Automate. I'm going to show you a few automations that we can run with. So let me share the right screen. So here I am in SharePoint. So Power Automate lives in a lot of the apps now as kind of custom built rules that you can create immediately. So one of the ones that's really common and really useful is the ability to basically just get it to notify me when new files are added to a folder. This is particularly useful if you work with third parties. So a lot of companies will work with third parties and collaborate on stuff, and maybe use the likes of WeTransfer to share files with one another. Well, an alternative to that is you could create a folder in a SharePoint area that you share with that external company so that they can put their stuff, those files into that instead. So it's immediately in your environment. But then the question is, well, how do I know when they've put stuff in. Obviously, they could email me or Teams me, but what about automating that? So within SharePoint, I can find the folder that I've generated for this purpose, and I just go to this automation tag here, and I go to rules, and I tell it to create a rule. And as you see, we've got pre-populated rules that we can create, or rather set up to do exactly these things. So if I want to get notified when a new file is added, I simply click there. I tell it who I want to email, in this case, me. And there we go. The rule has been created. It's truly as straightforward as that. Equally, if we look at Teams as another option for this, so I will share my Teams screen now, and we'll show you that. Then a really useful workflow in Teams is the ability to delay a sent message. Why do you want to do this? Well, you might, if you're anything like me, you might think of something at, say, 7:30 at night. You want to post it on Teams so that you don't forget it, but you don't necessarily want everyone to kind of see that and think that they've got to respond to you at 7:30 at night. So the ability to delay a message is potentially really useful. To do this in Teams, you click on the little plus button when you're composing your message, either as a reply or a new post, and you go to workflows. And from here, I can see any workflows that I've already set up, any automations. Or if I want to create a new one, I can click on this create new action here. And as you can see, I can set up all these kind of pre-built workflows, including the ability to schedule a message. So I can say, yep, right, I want the ability to schedule a message. So I click that. I'd click, it'll sign me in. I click add workflow. And now, if I ever want to delay a message in future, I just click the workflows button. I select that schedule a message workflow, and I can then set that message to be sent at 9 o'clock the next morning, or whenever it is that I want it to go out. If you want to do something a little bit more involved, then you need to go to the actual kind of the meat of Power Automate. So you go to office.com, and then you go to the Power Automate link, clicking on the waffle. And if I go to and this is what that looks like. So from here, it's make.powerautomate.com. From here, I can create much more involved automations. So I can start with just saying, right, I want to create an automated cloud flow, and then I can start building out the thing that I want to do. Like most things Microsofty now, there's an AI option for this as well. So if I don't know how to start this, then I can go to this flow generator, and I can type in I can tell it what I want it to build, and it will start building that automation for me. It kind of hits a wall fairly quick, I must admit, when you're using it for this purpose. But again, it gets you kind of that starting point. So that's how automation, that's how Power Automate works. But Power Automate on its own is absolutely powerful, but I think it really comes to life when we use the next kind of piece in the puzzle of the Power Platform, and that is Power Apps. So what is a Power App? Essentially, a Power App is a low-code / kind of no-code development tool that allows you to build applications to do specific things within your business. Really commonly used to kind of digitize paper-based systems, automate repetitive tasks, and kind of replace things like spreadsheets. So that instead of having fairly unstructured data within a spreadsheet, you can structure it much better in an application that you can then give access to the relevant people to. So lots and lots of examples as to kind of how you can use Power Apps. You can use it to kind of integrate your business operations into a central platform. So the best example I can give of this is, let's say you've got kind of 3 things that you need to fill in as a system every time someone new joins the business. So you have to register them maybe within your CRM system, and you have to register them on the payroll system, and you have to register them in the HR system. You could create a Power App where you fill all the details into the app, and then it, using Power Automate, fills in those details across those 3 disparate applications that you've got as a business, instead of someone having to manually go to each of those 3 applications and fill in that content themselves. By virtue of it being cloud-based, it means that you can access your data from anywhere in real time and still keep it secure and compliant, because it all lives within the Microsoft ecosystem. So it's single sign-on. You access your app in the same way that you access Word and Excel and PowerPoint and everything else through your business email and password. But it means then that application, and therefore all the data stored within that application, is available at the kind of touch of a button on a phone, tablet, browser, or on your desktop computer. As I mentioned, it's a really great tool for digitizing paper-based systems and automating repetitive tasks. So anything where someone has to physically, fill in a piece of paper, Power Apps is a great tool to do that. So a really good example of this is Autoglass. So Autoglass is a business. Every time they send someone out onto to fix someone's windshield, the engineer would come, fix the windshield, and then it would take them half an hour to fill in a paper-based form to kind of run through what they've done. And then that form would have to then be sent back to head office, and then someone at head office would have to fill in the contents of that form into Autoglass's computer system. So what did they do? They built a Power App that replicated the form. So therefore, the person fixing the windshield filled in the Power App instead of filling in the form, which by nature was quicker. And that form immediately then was not only sent to head office, but it filled in the centralized system automatically. So the amount of time and therefore money that saved Autoglass was pretty tremendous. And it allows you ultimately, by choosing Microsoft as kind of the conduit for this, it allows you to create applications with a trusted brand, i.e. a business that's not going anywhere, but also a tool that's not going anywhere. And that means that if you get a Power App built for you by a third party, and then for whatever reason, you stop working with that third party, someone else can easily come in and support that application moving forward. Because although it's kind of custom to you, the tool itself is not, and therefore the way it was built will be infinitely familiar to another kind of Power Apps expert to therefore support moving forward. If we look at kind of common scenarios that we can use within business, these are kind of some examples of the things that you can build with Power Apps. So you can use it for doing things like inventory management, so inventory tracking, barcode scanning, managing restocks, etc. You can look at supply chain, human resources, really good for things like employee onboarding and recruitment processes. Financial management, so things like expense tracking, for example. All these sorts of things that some businesses will have dedicated applications that do this, and that's great. But a lot don't, and a lot base a lot of these sorts of tasks on spreadsheets. So by bringing them into a Power App world, we have a kind of central source of information, which is great. But then we have the power of things like Power Automate and Power BI, which we'll look at later on, to kind of take what those tools are doing and bring it to the next level and automate that process moving forward. Fill in other documents, send approval requests, send emails, fill in templates, whatever it may be. And this doesn't just straddle the kind of business world as well. It straddles education and kind of the nonprofit sector. So in education, you can build tools like reading assessment tools. So this is a real life example, an assistant principal. So again, Power Apps is built to be kind of low and no code development. The theory being that anyone could build a Power App, and that's true. I think there always comes a point where, from a complexity standpoint, you might need a professional to come in. And that's where inTEC can help. But absolutely, this is definitely going to be worthwhile for all of you kind of on this call after it to kind of take a look and see what you can do yourselves. So this is a reading assessment tool. This link works. You can have a look at this later on, where, as you say, it helps teachers kind of track student progress in reading, identify areas where students needed support, and then streamline their assessment process by bringing it into a digital and centralized location. Equally, it's been used in things like special education support and kind of creating a centralized resource library. So schools use Power Apps to create a resource library that contains, as you can see, onboarding materials, class notes, training resources, school policies. Again, something that's kind of relevant, I think, to any number of businesses. So as a business ourselves, at inTEC, I manage a team of developers that kind of build Power Apps for businesses. So we work a lot with clients to kind of understand their needs, understand where a Power App could potentially replace a manual process or a paper-based process or a disparate process. But sometimes businesses don't necessarily know what they need, or don't want to have that kind of implementation cost as to pay. So I'm proud to kind of announce that we've got a new product coming out in the next month. And what this product will allow us to do is kind of bring Power Apps to businesses without the upfront costs. And we call it inbusiness. And what inbusiness is going to be a suite of applications that will kind of perform a lot of these kind of standard tasks that companies have, and that companies often use spreadsheets to perform. So things like holiday trackers, sales calculator, timesheet management, simple CRM systems, managing the recruitment process, all in one application. And now I'm going to give you all a kind of a sneak peek as to what this actually looks like. So let me share my screen. And let's take a look. So here we are in the inbusiness app. It's worthwhile noting this is obviously the inTEC version of it. Any business that takes this on, it will be branded up in your colors. So we've got our set of applications here. If we start in the settings bit first, from here I can change app-based settings. So for example, here for our expenses app, we can tell it who the authenticator of the expenses are, and we can set our per mile petrol price. And we can also change how the look and feel of it. So if I wanted to change everything to green to match that particular company colors, then I can do. I can also, from here, I can log tickets. So if I do have an issue with the app, or I can log a ticket automatically from here to then raise that with our support team and fix whatever that problem is. And we've also included this suggest a feature. So if anyone using the app thinks, oh, well, this is great, but it would be great if it could do this, then they can use that to suggest features to us. And if we get enough requests to do a certain thing, or we just think it's a really good idea, then we can build that into the to the system. So we've got a number of kind of applications that will sit in this. How the pricing will work for inbusiness is that you either pay for the apps that you want, or you can pay one lump sum and you get all of the applications. So it totally depends on, as a business, what you want, and that's just a per user per month fee. So if we have a look at the expenses tracker, for example, I can go here. I'm displayed dead easy to use, really user friendly. So I can then put in a receipt expense or a mileage expense. And from here, I just complete the information that I want. So in this example, I'm going to say I've gone 40 miles. We'll say it was from today. I can tell it what postcodes I'm going to and from. And I tell it if it's a return journey. And that is it. I then submit that as a request. So that will then send an email to the requester, which is there. And then that can be approved or denied by that requester, and then that can be fed into payroll as a result. Another application that we've got in here is our projects application. So as a business, we do quite a lot of bespoke work, but bespoke to the client, not necessarily bespoke to us. And so we spend a lot of time at the moment from a pre-sales perspective, kind of working out what how many days a certain project will take, when in reality it's a calculator that we need. So we've got this sales tool to now do this projects app. So if I want to cost up, say, a SharePoint migration, I can click in here and I can fill in the details that I've got from my client of what they want. So this would be in business kind of configured to the needs of your business and what your sales processes are and what your kind of calculations are. But it allows me to do that. At this point, it's feeding from our client management tool, so that I can see all the various clients that we work with, and I can complete that. And then if I hit submit, it will then generate a amount of days effort that I need for this. We could then feed this into templating tools and whatnot, so that I can then send a quote out to a business to then say, right, this is how much this is going to cost, and this is what that bit of work's going to involve. So again, automating a process that is typically going to take way longer, because I'm going to be digging out, looking for files and all the rest of it. I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to reference it to anyone else. So me as an account manager, I can really easily, service my client's needs. So that is in business, and we do have a bit. I'm going to introduce you to a little bit of an introductory offer on that later on. It's a kind of a reward for joining this this webinar. But that's Power Apps. The third kind of point of the triangle when it comes to what we're going to cover today in the Power Platform is Power BI, and this is where we kind of drive data insights from pretty much anywhere. So essentially what Power BI does is it allows us to take data from Excel spreadsheets and from any number of kind of third-party tools and then bring that all together into one place and then build analytical data from it. So build graphs and tables and charts that can be infinitely kind of driven into to provide really advanced analytics. So that instead of me having lots of disparate data sets that I have to inquire of individually, and therefore I can't really easily gain insight into how one thing affects another. With Power BI, I absolutely can, because I can bring all these things into one location, and therefore I can say, right, well, how does this affect this? Whatever those factors are, depending on what business I work in. So it's a drag and drop interface. So once you've kind of connected up your data sets to it, you can build dashboards pretty easily. And then you can build reports off the back of it that can be interactive, that can be drill downable. So it might be that the first level of a report is a bar chart, and then that breaks down by month. If you then want to see how the monthly sales broke down, then you can click into that bar chart and break everything down accordingly, depending on what you need to be seeing as a person within that organization. And in reality, Power BI is much easier to demonstrate than it is to talk about. So let's move into our kind of last demo of the session, and let's have a look at Power BI. So here I am in an environment, and the kind of to set the scene on this, I'm working as a person within the charity sector, and what I want to do is I want to improve our data collection using approved grants and the discount offers that I get from Microsoft. And now, in this year, I want to use Power BI to kind of gain insights into the data that we're holding as a charity, so that I can start making kind of informed decisions of it. So I start by opening up Power BI, and I need to connect it to a data source. So I can connect it to Excel, I can connect it to a SQL Server, or I can get it from any number of other data sources. So I can use APIs to connect this to any particular system that I'm currently using to store data. But the easiest way to do it is through a SQL Server, because that will allow me to import data from multiple places, throw it all into the SQL Server, and then have that SQL Server kind of spit it out into Power BI. So it's the quickest way to do it. So I'm now going to go and find my SQL Server, because I've already built one. So this is hosted in Azure, and I can now paste this in and connect it up. Once I've connected up, I can then determine what I want to see in my reports. So I click the tables that I want Power BI to display, and I then tell it to load it up. And Power BI will automatically kind of detect relationships between these data tables. And then what I can then do is kind of create my own relationships as well. So in this example, I want to take the date, and I want to relate that straight to donations. Once I've done that, I can then move forward into understanding kind of what I've got across these various data sets, and therefore what the insight looks around them. So let's click on report and move this on to the next step. So I now want to kind of build visualizations. So I'm going to get it to build me a bar chart, and it will now and tell it what I want this bar chart to feature in. So I want to connect it to my demand, and I want to specifically look at demand by day across my charity, and it builds me a graph to do that. I then want to be able to slice this up into different months. So I click on the little slicer icon. I can then drag this into my report, and now I can then break this down by month. So if I then want to understand what January in particular looks like, for example, then I can do that, and I can slice that up accordingly. And that's kind of just the start of it. So now I've been able to build some pretty simple charts, but now I want to start building out reports. So here is what it can look like with a bit of extra work. So I've now got 4 tabs covering donations versus demand, weather versus operations, and volunteers. And as well as kind of having these slices, I can also kind of filter this information as well, depending on what I want to see. So in this instance, I want to understand what our corporate donors are doing. So I click on this, and this will now show me exclusively what corporate donor types are doing. And then if I click it again, I can maximize it back to the way it was. Now, equally, if I want to see, if I want to break down by things like donation type, then I can do that. So I can see, right, well, what's our infant food donation look like? And break down this data in the kind of any way I want, depending on what I want to see. If I look at another tab, this donations versus demand tab, in this daily chart, I can see that in each month, the largest donation is at the end of the month, while the best days for donations come near the start of the month. So that's interesting. If I want to then break that down, I want to see what that looks like from a corporate perspective, then I look at that. And as I may have suspected, kind of while building the report, corporate donors are a major influence in our donation patterns. And so I can use this information and speak to our kind of board of directors to plan to work with these donors to kind of move their planned donations towards the end of the month so that it all kind of coalesces. Equally, if I want to understand how weather impacts upon operations, then I've got this dashboard to do that. And I can see near the end of the year, we saw a steep drop in donations and a spike in demand. And many assumed, maybe quite rightly, that it was because of Christmas. But actually, I've suspected that it's extreme weather that could be playing a larger factor in this. So I can then see through this chart, I can see that in the areas where there was unusually cold temperatures, it matched the change in the donations and demand. So I'm able to gather insights from this data from separate data sources that I simply wouldn't have been able to do if these were just separate charts and tables in Excel. If I then want to break that down further, I can look specifically at February, and I can see that in February of last year, even a sudden 1-day drop in temperature, it matched a day of low donations and high demand. And so even though this is just a couple of data points showing a possible pattern, it allows us to kind of suggest that as a charity, we need to be sending out extra calls for support before any forecasted temperature drops. And then finally, if we look at volunteers, I can see maybe I found a great kind of calendar visualization on the Power BI marketplace. So there's loads of visualizations that you can get through Power BI that you can either build yourself or you can pay for, or in this case, that you can get for free. And this single page allows me to see any trends in volunteer hours, look up specific details for any volunteer. So I want to look specifically at Corey Gray. So I can look at them and I can see that every day that Corey Gray volunteered and what his hours were and volunteered hours by month across the piece. Now, I'm curious about the spike of volunteer hours on the 18th of every month because that's a little bit odd. So I want to look at this by clicking on it, and I want to see what that breakdown looks like. So I click on that, and I can see that then maybe I recall that, all right, yes, there was a big food drive on that Saturday, and that's why we've got so many people who worked on that day, and why we've got so many hours, and therefore why we've seen that spike. And on we go. So although this was an example from the charity sector, I think it hopefully gives you kind of a brief snapshot into the power that you can get from that solution, in the sense that it doesn't matter where my data resides. It doesn't matter that I've got lots of disparate places to kind of look for it. I can utilize Power BI to drag that into one central location and then provide a ton of insight that I just can't get. So within inTEC, we use this to bring together our ticketing systems and our CRM system and our finance system and our HR system into one place, so that we can start seeing trends and analytics that just wouldn't exist previously, which allows us to better support our customers and our staff. And so that, in a nutshell, is the Power Platform. I'm sure this presentation will be distributed out, so there's no need to kind of go mad clicking all these links now, but there's loads of content out there resource wise that you can utilize to do a bit of self-service. So Microsoft provide training labs, so you can do build an app in a day and build a flow in a day and learn about that technology. You build your first app, so you can just get more information around Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. It would be foolish of me not to mention what we as a business can do for you. So we can do all of the things that I've gone through today. So we can work with you to build automations that will allow you to automate manual tasks. We can help you build custom Power Apps to take a paper-based process or a slow process, whatever that may be, and digitize it in a custom way at a fraction of the cost of kind of standard custom development. Obviously, we can sell you now pre-built Power Apps that do specific functions. That's what inbusiness is all about. And we can work with you to build fully featured Power BI dashboards, whether that is as a business, maybe you only have a couple of Excel spreadsheets and you just want to kind of coalesce them into one place, then we can absolutely do that, through to organizations with lots and lots of different data points and lots of disparate systems where we can build a much more fully featured dashboard. And this is something that we do a lot. We're working a lot with schools at the moment, so looking at their pupil data around performance and attendance and behavior, and being able to drag all that into a Power BI dashboard is providing really valuable insights to schools around trends. So understanding exactly how attendance affects performance or how behavior affects performance and whatnot, and being able to compare that across year groups and across different intakes is really valuable. And that's something that absolutely we can provide for you as businesses and schools and whatever area you work in. There are tools that we can help you with and help you build. So to push things forward, there's kind of three options that you've got. If you just want to email me directly, you can do using the email address at the top. If you want to inquire specifically about inbusiness, then there's the place to do it. That will take you to a form and you can put an inquiry in. If you go to that form and type webinar into the offer code field at the bottom, then we'll give you the first 3 months of inbusiness at half price, and there's pricing information and whatnot on that form as well. Or if you want to book a meeting with me to talk about any of these or all of these areas in more detail one-to-one, then you can click that link at the bottom and book a meeting with me directly, and we can talk it through. And with that, and with 3 minutes to spare, thanks very much. That's the end of the webinar. I hope you found it useful.